The cold bites first, a shock straight through my boots. Snow falls thick and fast, erasing tracks the moment they're made. The wind howls, a hungry animal tearing at the mountain pines. But the sound that cuts deepest isn't the wind. It's the frantic pounding. The desperate, frantic pounding on wood. Solid oak. It's the door to my chalet. Through the tiny ice-frosted window beside it, I can see them. Huddled figures. Faces pale with cold, and something else. Disbelief. Panic. His face, usually so controlled, is twisted, raw. And beside him, her. Wrapped in a ridiculous, bright ski suit that screams, new money, borrowed life. They pound, they shove, they rattle the handle. It doesn't budge. It's locked. Locked solid from the inside. Just as I planned. The phone is cold against my ear. Across miles of snow and silence, a voice crackles, small and tinny, yet holding the weight of the world. They're here. Just like you said. Trying to get in. They look surprised. A slow, cold wave washes over me. Not triumph yet. Just the quiet, bone-deep satisfaction of a trap sprung. The pounding continues, a frantic, primal beat against the mountain's indifference. The snow keeps falling, and I stand in my own silence, holding my breath, waiting for the next sound. The sound I know is coming. His voice. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. Life was a pattern. Comfortable, predictable, built on shared history and quiet understanding. Or what I thought was quiet understanding. We had the house in the city, the cars, the friends, the routine. And we had the chalet. Our escape. High in the mountains, built from local stone and aged timber, with a massive fireplace and windows that framed impossibly perfect views of snow-capped peaks. It wasn't just a second home. It was the heart of our life together, the place where we reconnected, where the noise of the world faded. It felt like us. Solid. Unshakable. My husband, David, was good at building things. Not with his hands, but with deals. He was a master of leverage, of finding the weak spot, of making things work in his favor. I admired that about him. His focus, his drive. It felt like it extended to our life, too. Like he was always building something secure for us. He handled the finances, the investments, the big decisions. I handled the life. The home, the social calendar, the details. And the chalet. That was my domain in a way. I'd overseen its renovation, curated the furniture, hired the local property manager, a man named Antoine, who was as sturdy and reliable as the mountain itself. Antoine didn't just manage the property. He guarded it. He knew its rhythms, its secrets. He was our man on the ground, the gatekeeper. Our life wasn't perfect. Whose is? There were silences that stretched a little too long, conversations we didn't quite finish. Work consumed him more and more. Late nights, missed dinners. Standard stuff, I told myself. The price of his success. We still had the chalet trips, though. Those were sacred. A few long weekends a year, a week or two in the winter. Just us. The fire, the snow, the silence. It felt like plugging back into the source. I remember one evening at the chalet, curled up by the fire. Snow was swirling outside, a white blur against the glass. He was reading, I was knitting, some silly project. The silence was comfortable, filled with the crackle of the fire and the wind. He looked up, smiled. Peaceful, isn't it? He'd said. Nothing else matters up here. I believed him. Utterly. The disruption didn't arrive like a bomb. It was quieter. Insidious. A loose thread pulled. A strange name in a phone bill I happened to glance at. A hushed phone call he ended abruptly when I entered the room. The usual signs, I suppose, that I initially pushed away. Denied. My life was solid. David was solid. We had the chalet. Then came the email. It wasn't meant for me. It was a confirmation, forwarded by mistake from his work account to our shared personal one. A flight booking. 2 tickets. To the nearest airport to the chalet. Dated for the upcoming weekend. His name and hers. A name I didn't recognize immediately. But the destination hit me like a physical blow. My chalet. Our sacred space. He wasn't just having an affair. He was taking her there. To our place. To walk on our floors, sleep in our bed, look out at our mountains. The air left my lungs. I remember standing there, staring at the screen, the words blurring. It wasn't just the betrayal of the marriage. It was the desecration of the one place that felt pure, felt truly ours. He was poisoning the well, using the very symbol of our connection to hide his lie. The world tilted. The comfortable pattern shattered, revealing jagged edges I hadn't seen before. Everything felt fragile now. The house, the cars, the friends, the quiet understanding. All of it felt like a stage set, and the backdrop had just fallen down. I didn't confront him. Not yet. The shock was too deep, too cold. An icy calm settled over me, a strange stillness in the center of the hurricane. My mind didn't race with tears or shouts. It started to calculate. The days that followed were a blur of performance. I moved through our life like a ghost, smiling when expected, making small talk, sharing meals across the same table, while a cold, hard knot tightened in my stomach. Every glance at him felt like looking at a stranger. A proficient, charming stranger who had meticulously built a secret life parallel to mine. My first thought was simply to stop them, to call him, scream, expose him. But the cold calculation held me back. What would that achieve? A messy fight, his denials, maybe a temporary halt to that specific trip. But he'd still be him, still a liar, and the chalet would still be tainted by the knowledge that this was his plan. He would still have held the power to wound me so deeply, the power to choose her and our place.
No.
That wasn't enough. Stopping them felt like damage control. I didn't want damage control. I wanted something else. Something that felt like reclaiming. Something that felt like my power. The chalet. My domain.
Antoine.
My gatekeeper. An idea formed, slow and deliberate, like ice crystals forming on a winter windowpane. It was audacious. Cruel, perhaps. But it felt right. A way to turn his weapon against him. To use the symbol of our shared life, the place he was planning to defile, as the instrument of his own undoing. The decision crystallized one sleepless night. I sat in the dark, listening to his quiet, steady breathing from the other side of the bed, the sound now a source of profound alienation.
I would not let him have that weekend.
Not there. Not with her. And I wouldn't just stop him. I would make the chalet, the mountain, the unforgiving cold, bear witness to his betrayal. This wasn't just about revenge anymore. It was about drawing a line. About saying, you may have stolen our past, you may have poisoned our present, but you will not use my space, our sanctuary, for your lies. This was about taking back the narrative. This was about making him the one standing outside in the cold. The shift felt monumental. From hurt, from shock, from passive victimhood, to active, cold determination. The fear remained, a low hum beneath my skin, but it was now mixed with a bracing sense of purpose. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was planning. I was executing. The first step was Antoine. I couldn't call him directly from our house. David might see the call log. I drove to a coffee shop across town, found a quiet corner, and dialed his number. My hands were shaking slightly as I held the phone. Antoine was old school, preferred calls to texts, reliable to a fault.
Antoine?
It's Mrs. Davies. Catherine. His voice was warm, steady. Madam Davies. All is well up here. The snow is magnificent. Are you coming up soon? My voice had to be carefully neutral. Antoine, yes. About that weekend. There's a change of plans. Mr. Davies was planning to come up, but something's happened. An emergency. He won't be able to make it. A slight pause. Antoine knew David's schedule, knew he'd planned to be there. He was sharp, observant. I had to be convincing. Ah, pity. Everything is prepared. Yes, I know. And I appreciate that, Antoine. But look, this emergency, it means neither of us can be there. And this is important, Antoine. Very important. Because of the nature of the emergency, it's crucial that no one at all enters the chalet this weekend. Absolutely no one. It needs to remain sealed. I could almost hear him processing this. A sealed chalet? It was unusual. Our agreement was that he would open it for us, managed services be available. Sealed. Madam Davies? Is there a problem? A personal problem, Antoine. A serious one. It requires privacy. Absolute privacy. I need your assurance that no matter who shows up, no matter what they say, the doors remain locked. The alarm stays on. No entry. Another pause, longer this time. I held my breath. Antoine's loyalty was to us, to the chalet. But David was his employer, too, the one who signed the checks. Madam Davies. Mr. Davies, he was very clear he was coming. My heart hammered against my ribs. This was the moment. Would he question? Would he call David? I had to use the leverage I had, the implicit trust we'd built, the fact that I was the one who hired him, who understood the nuances of the property. Antoine, I understand that. But this is a change directed by me, due to this emergency. Please, you must trust me on this. It is vital. For the security of everything. I will handle Mr. Davies. Your job is simply to ensure the chalet remains impenetrable this weekend. Can you do that for me, Antoine?
Please.
As a personal favor.
For me.
And for the chalet. I injected a note of quiet desperation into my voice. Not enough to sound hysterical, but enough to convey the gravity, the personal emergency angle. I knew Antoine was protective of the chalet, saw it as more than just a property. I appealed to that, to his sense of guardianship. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, he spoke. His voice was lower now, more serious. Madam Davies, if you say it is so important and for the chalet,
Yes.
I can ensure no one enters. I will make sure the locks are checked, the alarm armed, the gate secured. No one gets in. A wave of relief, cold and sharp, washed over me.
Thank you, Antoine. Thank you.
I will explain everything later.
Just this weekend.
It is paramount. Consider it done, Madam Davies. We hung up. My hand was still shaking, but the knot in my stomach had loosened, replaced by a brittle kind of calm. The trap was set. Now came the agonizing wait. The days leading up to their planned arrival were the hardest. Living a lie requires constant vigilance. Every look, every word, every gesture felt scrutinized, even though I knew he suspected nothing. He was preoccupied, distant, already mentally checked out of our life and into his weekend getaway with her. He booked a rental car, packed a separate bag he kept hidden. I saw it all, the small, damning pieces of evidence, and the cold certainty grew. My mind became a battleground. Part of me screamed to stop, to confess, to blow everything up. Another part, the cold, hard kernel that had made the decision, held firm. This wasn't just about punishment. It was about proving something to myself. That I wasn't weak. That I wouldn't be a passive victim. That I could still control something when my world felt utterly out of control. I tracked the weather forecast obsessively. Heavy snow was predicted for the mountains that weekend.
Perfect.
The colder, the more unforgiving, the better. It would amplify their discomfort, turn their planned romantic getaway into a frozen, miserable ordeal. I imagined their journey. The drive up the winding mountain roads, the anticipation in the car, their hushed conversations, their plans for their stolen weekend. Every imagined detail fueled my resolve. He was bringing her to my sanctuary. He was using the place I loved, the place that held so many genuine memories, as the backdrop for his deceit. This wasn't just infidelity. It felt like a violation of something sacred. Antoine called me the day before. Madam Davies, just confirming. The weather is turning very bad. Heavy snow expected. Roads could be difficult. Yes, Antoine. All the more reason for the chalet to remain secured. No visitors. No exceptions. My voice was firm, leaving no room for doubt. Very well, Madam Davies. I have double-checked everything. The main gate is locked, the access codes are temporarily deactivated, and the secondary entrance is bolted from the inside. The alarm system is fully armed. No one with a key or a code will be able to bypass it without alerting the authorities, and I've already briefed the local patrol about needing the place undisturbed this weekend for maintenance. He was thorough. I'd chosen wisely.
Excellent, Antoine. Thank you.
I truly appreciate this. The tension coiled tighter in my stomach. It was happening. The plan was in motion. There was no turning back now. I spent the night tossing and turning, the image of the chalet, dark and locked in the snow, filling my mind. What would their faces look like? How long would they try? What would they do? The day they were due to arrive felt surreal. I went through the motions of a normal Saturday. Went to the grocery store, ran errands. But my mind was miles away, high in the mountains. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Was it Antoine? Was it David? Was it already happening? I pictured them driving up the familiar road. The turn off the main highway. The approach to the private road leading to the chalet. The anticipation building. Maybe he was telling her stories about the place, about happy times there. The irony was a bitter taste in my mouth. He was leading her to a place built on a life he was dismantling. Antoine had agreed to text me when he saw their car arrive near the gate. I waited. The hours crawled by. The snow started falling in the city, a mirror of the blizzard I knew was raging on the mountain. Finally, the text came. They are at the gate. Trying to open it. My breath hitched. They were there. At the entrance to my world. Trying to force their way in. They seemed confused.
Good.
Confusion was the first step. He is calling someone. Calling me? Calling Antoine? Calling the emergency number? I held my phone, my thumb hovering over David's contact. Not yet. Let them struggle. Let the cold sink in. Let the reality of the locked door dawn on them. They're walking up the drive. To the house. It was a long drive uphill, especially in heavy snow. They would be cold by the time they reached the front door.
Good.
Let them walk. Let them feel the mountain's indifference. They are at the front door now.
Pounding.
This was it. The moment I had pictured. The climax of my cold strategy. They were standing on my porch, locked out of my sanctuary, exposed to the elements I had counted on. The phone rang. It was David. I let it ring for a few seconds, listening to the sound vibrate on the table, building the tension. For him and for myself. Then, slowly, I picked it up. Hello, David. My voice was flat, calm. A deliberate contrast to the frantic energy I could already hear bleeding through the line. Catherine. Thank God. What the hell is going on? We're at the chalet, and we can't get in. The gate's locked, the door's locked, the code doesn't work. What did you do? His voice was a mixture of confusion, anger, and a rising edge of panic. He wasn't in control anymore. He was reacting. I took a slow breath, letting the silence hang for a beat. I could hear the wind whipping against the phone, a faint sound of frantic movement in the background. Her. What did I do, David? My voice was soft, almost a whisper. I secured my property. Secured your property? What are you talking about? It's our property. We're freezing out here. The code isn't working. It's not our property, David. Not this weekend. This weekend, it's my property. And I've instructed my property manager, Antoine, to ensure it remains private. Secured. To anyone who isn't me. A stunned silence on the other end. I could feel his brain struggling to process this. He'd been so sure of himself, so confident in his secret plan. And now, the ground had disappeared beneath his feet.
Antoine?
You told Antoine. His voice was lower now, disbelieving. Yes, David. I told Antoine. I explained that there was an emergency. A private matter. That no one, absolutely no one, was to be allowed entry this weekend. He's very reliable, Antoine. He takes my instructions very seriously. You did this deliberately? You knew I was coming. The anger was back, raw and potent. The betrayed party, suddenly finding himself on the wrong side of the betrayal. I knew you were coming, David.
Yes.
I saw the flight booking. 2 tickets. To my chalet. With her, I let the last word hang in the air, sharp and accusatory. Another silence. A choked sound in the background. Her. She knew now. She was locked out with him, exposed, their sordid plan laid bare. You bitch, he spat the words out, venomous. You locked us out? In this weather? It's a blizzard, David. Didn't you check the forecast? Antoine warned me. I just made sure the chalet was protected from the storm. And from unwelcome guests. Unwelcome guests? This is our chalet. And this is insane. People could get hurt. It's freezing. Is it? Well, you chose to travel in a blizzard, David. And you chose to travel with company I didn't approve of. You made your choices. Now you're experiencing the consequences. My voice remained flat, devoid of emotion. The cold outside was mirroring the cold inside me. Consequences? What are you talking about? Let us in, Catherine. Right now. Or I swear to God. Or what, David? What exactly will you do? You're standing outside in the snow, locked out of the property you tried to sneak into for a tryst. You have no leverage here. None. I heard him yell something away from the phone, presumably at her. Then his voice came back, strained, tinged with desperation. Just unlock the door, Catherine. Please. We can talk. Just let us in. There's nothing to talk about, David. You made your statement when you booked those tickets. Now I'm making mine. I heard a different sound then. Not shouting, but a gasp. Followed by a thud. A heavy, sickening sound. David? David. It was her voice, sharp with sudden fear. Oh my God. David. My blood ran cold. What was happening?
Antoine?
I switched ears, my voice losing its cold edge, replaced by a jolt of pure adrenaline. The phone Antoine had been using to communicate was still connected, silent until now. His voice cut through the wind noise, strained. Madam Davies? Madam Davies. Mr. Davies, he collapsed. Collapsed? Outside? In the snow? My mind reeled. This wasn't part of the plan. The cold, yes. The humiliation, yes. But not this. Collapsed? What do you mean, collapsed? He was shouting, very red in the face, then he just fell. He's on the porch. Not moving properly. Her frantic voice was still audible through David's phone line. Help him. He's not breathing right. A different kind of panic seized me. Not for him, not really, but for the sheer, unpredictable chaos of it all. The neat, cold revenge plan suddenly spiraling out of control. Call emergency services, Antoine. Immediately. Tell them his location. Tell them it's a medical emergency. My voice was sharp, urgent. I had wanted him exposed, humiliated, frozen out. I hadn't wanted him hurt. Not like this. I am calling them now, Madam Davies. And the mistress? She is trying to help him, Madam Davies. She is screaming. Her scream, raw with fear and desperation, echoed faintly through both phones. It was the sound of their illicit adventure collapsing entirely, not just because of a locked door, but because of the sudden, terrifying fragility of life itself. The mountain, the cold, the betrayal, the stress, it had all converged. And David, the man who built things, who found leverage, had collapsed. The silence that followed felt immense, broken only by the distant wail of sirens beginning their slow climb up the mountain. The air in my city apartment felt thin, cold. I was still holding the phone, Antoine having hung up to deal with the emergency services. David's line had gone dead. What had I done? I had wanted control. I had wanted vindication. I had wanted to wound him, to show him the depth of his betrayal and the strength of my response. And I had. But the image of him collapsing on the porch, in the snow, with his mistress uselessly screaming over him, was not the satisfying picture I had envisioned. It was messy, tragic. Antoine called me back later. Emergency services had arrived. They had stabilized him. It looked like a stress-induced cardiac event, exacerbated by the cold and exertion. They airlifted him to a hospital in the city. The mistress had gone with him. The chalet remained locked, silent, and blanketed in snow. The aftermath was a strange, disorienting blend of chaos and emptiness. The perfect, clean lines of my revenge dissolved into the complicated reality of a medical crisis, legal implications, and the sudden, unavoidable confrontation I had avoided. David was in the hospital for weeks. I visited him, not out of love or forgiveness, but out of a strange, cold sense of obligation. He was weak, scared. The arrogance was gone, replaced by a pale vulnerability. We didn't talk about the chalet or the mistress, not at first. The air in the hospital room was thick with unspoken accusations and the sterile smell of disinfectant. His family arrived. His mother, tearful and accusing. His siblings, awkward and uncertain. The mistress was kept away, a ghost in the periphery of his medical emergency. My role was that of the long-suffering wife, the one who was there when he collapsed. The irony was a bitter pill. The legal separation began while he was still recovering. There was no going back. The locked door on the mountain had sealed more than just the chalet that day. It had sealed the fate of our marriage. The financial negotiations were cold, clinical. His lawyers tried to use the incident at the chalet against me, arguing I had endangered him. My lawyers countered, pointing to the infidelity, the attempted clandestine trip, the emotional distress. The property manager, Antoine, was a key witness, his steady, reliable account of my instructions and the subsequent events lending credibility to my side. He simply stated that he followed the homeowner's instructions to secure the property during a declared private emergency and that he witnessed Mr. Davies arrive with an unknown woman and subsequently collapse. The story of the mistress trying to sneak into the wife's property became a powerful narrative. The chalet. It became a central point of contention. He wanted it sold. I refused. It was mine. It was the place he had tried to defile, and the place where his betrayal had culminated in his collapse. It held the weight of everything. It was where I had lost him, and where I had, in a twisted way, found a new, colder version of myself. In the end, I kept the chalet. It was part of the settlement. He conceded, perhaps realizing the symbolic power it held, or perhaps simply wanting to be rid of the painful reminder. He got other assets, tangible things. I got the stone and timber, the view, the silence, and the heavy weight of the memory. The mistress disappeared from his life. I heard she returned to wherever she came from, her brief, ill-fated mountain adventure ending in a hospital waiting room and a hasty retreat. She was just a passenger in his deception, caught in the crossfire of a collapsing marriage and a wife's cold fury. Life didn't immediately become peaceful. There was the aftermath, the unraveling, the grief for the life lost, even a life built partly on lies. Friends took sides or disappeared. The city house felt too big, too empty. But I had the chalet. I went back months later, when the snow had melted and the mountain air was crisp and clean.
Antoine met me.
We didn't talk about that day directly. He simply handed me the keys, his gaze steady and knowing. Walking into the chalet felt like stepping into a time capsule. Everything was as I had left it, frozen in time before the storm, before the collapse, before the end of everything. The air was still and quiet. I walked through the rooms, touching the familiar surfaces. The stone of the fireplace, the rough-hewn wood of the beams, the soft wool of the rug. It was still my space. Still us, in a way, the good parts of us, preserved in stone and wood. Standing on the porch, the spot where he had fallen, I looked out at the view. The mountains were indifferent, majestic. They had witnessed his betrayal, my revenge, his collapse, and they remained unchanged. A cold victory leaves scars. I had won the battle for the chalet, for control in that moment. I had blindsided him, turned the tables completely. He had wanted a romantic escape. He got frozen out and collapsed. There was a grim satisfaction in that, a sense of justice served, albeit a harsh, unforgiving justice. But the cost was everything. The marriage, the trust, the comfortable pattern of life I had known. The chalet is silent now. Sometimes I go there alone. The memories are thick in the air, The good ones, the bad ones, the terrible one. It's a monument to a life that was, and a turning point I orchestrated. I sit by the fire, look out at the snow, and listen to the wind. It no longer sounds like a hungry animal. It just sounds like the wind. Cold, clean, and carrying no judgment. The cold lingers. Not just outside, but deep inside. The kind of cold that settles in your bones after a long, hard winter. The kind of cold you know will never truly thaw. But beneath it, there's something else. A quiet strength. The knowledge that I faced the worst and I survived. I didn't just weather the storm. I became the storm. And sometimes, that's the only way to survive. If this story hit close to home, I'd love to hear your version in the comments below. Thanks for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these to life.